At last month's Euros match between Germany and Hungary, a poignant moment as a protester invaded the pitch carrying a rainbow flag during the country's national anthem. Homosexuality has been legal in Hungary since 1961, but in practice it remained a taboo until the late 1990s, when annual Pride events began in the capital Budapest. But just a decade later, the event was targeted by violent protests, forcing further Pride events behind police lines. Not long afterwards, the new Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán introduced a new constitution banning same-sex marriage. During his time in office, he's become increasingly conservative in promoting what he says are traditional values. And more recently, the constitution has banned same-sex couples from adopting children. His approach has brought him into increasing conflict with other EU member states, including the Dutch PM, Mark Rutte, who recently told him to respect LGBT rights or leave the bloc. Today, the EU's leadership issued a stark warning. This law puts homosexuality and gender reassignment on a par with pornography. This law uses the protection of children, to which we're all committed, as an excuse to severely discriminate against people because of their sexual orientation. This law is disgraceful. If Hungary does not rectify the situation, the Commission will use its powers available as the guardian of the treaties. Campaigners are urging the EU to bring a legal case for discrimination against Hungary, to freeze funds to the country and even to suspend its voting rights. But others are worried about the risk of a tougher approach in alienating Budapest and damaging EU unity. Well, joining us now is campaigner Tamás Dombos, who is on the board of the Hungarian LGBT Alliance. Tamás, we've had tough words from Ursula von der Leyen, but I wonder how much appetite you really think there is amongst the EU leaders to have this fight.
We have the feeling that the situation is very different from previous years. I mean, in the past 10 years, we've seen violation of fundamental rights after violation of fundamental rights, not just LGBTQI people, but homeless people, Roma people, religious minorities. And the EU was standing beside and not doing anything about it. Maybe some statements, but not doing anything real. And this time, it seems like there is really support for harsher measures. We've seen 18 of the European member states asking the Commission for stricter provisions. We've seen the European Parliament, the majority of the European Parliament, standing up against Orbán's regime. We think that this time maybe something will actually happen.
The Orbán pushback to the EU, of course, is that they're the ones being illiberal, that when you have a democracy that chooses its own leaders and its own laws, then he should be allowed to do what he wants within the bloc. How would you counter that?
I mean, Orbán hasn't had an election program for years now. When he was elected, he never said that he would limit the rights of LGBTQI people. He never said that he would introduce such legislation. He didn't get this mandate from the people. Actually, if you look at public opinion polls by Euronews, for example, the majority of people think that this legislation recently adopted is abysmal. It's impossible. It's really restricting the rights of LGBTQI people that the majority of Hungarians do not agree with. So we think this is not a fight among the between the European Union and the Hungarian population. This is a fight with an illiberal, undemocratic leadership of the country that only cares about maintaining its power and is currently using LGBTQI people as a punchbag, as an enemy that they can fight against to win an election. We don't think that minorities should be treated like that.
So would you go so far as to say the EU should sanction, it should withhold COVID recovery funds, or it should have a say in how EU funds are used and spent in Hungary? I mean, would you want to see the EU withholding money right now?
We don't think that the money should be withheld. The money should get to Hungarian people because we do need the recovery, we do need healthcare, etc. But it should not be the Hungarian government that is trying to use that money in a very corrupt way to enforce their own political agenda. It should be independent bodies, whether civil society, whether the European Commission, that has a final say on how that money is spent, because our government cannot be trusted with spending that money.
And what happens if the EU doesn't step in? What is the signal that you think this sends out?
I mean, if Ursula von der Leyen comes to Hungary and just hands over billions of euros to Orbán to spend, I think that sends the message that there is no such a thing as European values. That any member state can do whatever they want. They can dismantle democratic institutions. They can dismantle the rule of law. They can dismantle fundamental rights, and the EU will just nod and give the money. I think that would send a very bad message, not only just to Hungary, but also to several other countries that are following similar politics.
Tamás Dombos, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us here on Newsnight this evening.